Why do we struggle so much to be kind to ourselves? The short answer to this very question is that you think you know who you are and you think you know what kindness is. But the truth is that you really don't know. How do I say this and how do I come up with such assurance that you don't know is basically the fact that it's the same for you as it is for me. We've all grown up in a society, in the world where from a very young age, our first reference points are our parents, our relatives, our neighbors, the schools we go to. What essentially happens is that from that very young age, there is conditioning. And this conditioning is essentially you being taken away from who you really are to become something in the future. So who you are isn't given as much importance as who you should be, must be, have to be. And hence there's a whole lot of belief systems that end up kind of creating that force field for yourself where you think that this is how life works. And you are hence looking at the world through the lenses that have been given to you by your parents, by your relatives, by your family members, etc. Right? So what happens here is that you are constantly benchmarking and trying to work towards that benchmark which has been set for you. But who you are, you've never been taught how to really understand, and you've never really been taught to explore that part of yourself, meaning who you really are, right? So it's like going into a jungle, and in that jungle, it's wild, there's trees all over the place, there's animals all over the place, but you have to get to the other end. So imagine if 100 different voices from the jungle say, come this way, go that way, come here, go there. Your mind becomes confused, you become confused. And that kind of conditioning happens over generations, right? And more often than not, if you think about it, we are embodiments of a generation of voices all around us that tell us what we ought to be, but not who we really are. So then the problem is that a narrative is set, because while you're in that forest trying to find your way through, there are voices initially that you grow up listening to, and there's a social acceptance and a social order that is established with it. People think that in order to be accepted, they have to comply by something. God knows where that came from, right? But if you go back into history and you learn history, you'll probably come to understand a whole lot of effects of colonialism, imperialism, a lot of theories that really talk about where it is that this whole idea comes from, that you ought to be something else and not who you are. So these voices from a very young age, they become conditioned voices. Things like, you're not good enough. If you go there and do this, you'll mess it up. You're not as good as the neighbor. And it's just endless. You're worthless. You're useless. You don't know how to do this. You don't know how to do that. So neither are you told what to actually do to get there, nor are you told who you are first and in the first place to then figure out where to go with things. So it's a loop, and then that loop goes on and on and on and on. It's just conditioning, and I keep using the word conditioning because that in essence is why you're experiencing this kind of negative and evil-like kind of a space inside. And more often than not, because those voices become overwhelming over a period of time, people take their lives. It's just too hard to handle these voices. And the problem is that up until a certain point, those are active voices. You actually hear your parents in your head. You actually hear your friends in your head. You actually hear some movie dialogue in your head which tells you what you should be or what you're not doing or what you're doing. And after some point in time, it becomes unconscious. So it's almost like a conditioned response. Someone puts cheese, the rat has no choice but to go get it because it's now conditioned to do it. It becomes a stimulus for it. So then coming out of it becomes a problem because you're coming from a space of reaction. So quickly summarizing on that, on what I've given thus far, is that you are here when you're born, and then there's ideas and opinions and belief systems, etc., that is put over here. And from here, you are made to be told that this is where you've got to be. So you're in point A, point B is 10 kilometers away, and that 10 kilometers away is not really true. It's just further and further and further. It just keeps going like a mirage. It's not even true. They say true happiness lies in becoming an engineer, becoming a doctor. They may say true happiness lies in earning a lot of money. They may also say true happiness comes in not having a lot of money. Everything is just opinions and facts. And the problem is that over a period of time, we become conditioned to the duality of things. And then we have voices in our head that are telling us these things without an actual stimulus required for it. We no longer need parents or family members or society or anything to tell us this. Our mind is now conditioned to auto-program it, and it will just keep throwing it in and out. Where the conflict begins from there on is that you're stuck between some voices that are good and some voices that are bad. And that duality is why it is confusing, because you're not quite able to understand where it's coming from. A lot of people don't realize until they go to therapy that, hey, I am feeling I'm not good enough because this is what my father said to me as a child. He said that you're not good at this or you're not good at that. Or some people only realize much, much later that, hey, the reason I find it hard to fail at things is because I was always told by my friends that I was a loser for trying something out new. And a lot of this conditioning you over a period of time begin to understand through therapy, which is why going to a clinical psychologist and going for therapy is great, because you can actually then understand where this is all coming from, right? So this context is to basically say and in a nutshell say that you don't know who you are. And because you don't know who you are, every narrative that's because every narrative that's given to you is externally given to you. So even what you think as your opinion is not your opinion. It is still society's opinion. You don't even know who you are, because they say in spirituality at least that the true self doesn't need to know. The true self already knows, right? So I'm going to dive into 3 tips, and these are my learnings in the course of my journey dealing with the voices in my head, right? For example, one voice in my head that's always very prevalent is you're not good enough, which is why I emphasize that a lot. And a lot of people struggle with different kinds of voices, that are, for example, I'm going to mess this up anyway, or I did everything right, but I just made one mistake and now it's all screwed up. You're good for nothing, you're useless, why are you doing this, you shouldn't even do this, look at the other person over there, they're doing better. Everyone has these voices. For me, several years ago when I was struggling with this, and for the longest time had been struggling with this, a particular day I came to the realization, it was like a brain wave in one sense, which was that I don't need a reason to be happy. When was the last time you saw someone happy and just smiling because they can smile, or because they want to smile, because they have come from a space of having the choice to smile? People smile or laugh, etc., because they're told to smile, and they don't even realize that sometimes when you're actually smiling for no reason, the problem is that people want you to have a reason. Hey, why are you smiling? You've not achieved anything. Hey, why are you happy? You shouldn't be happy. You're not doing anything in life. So there is always a projection, an ideal image. And this is my realization over a period of time that yes, people around me have hurt me. People around me have conditioned me to behave and think a certain way. But how much of that am I now using on myself? How much of what I think, I believe, I see is also a projection, right? So this is where I'd like to go into tip number 1. Tip number 1 for me, from my end, is you don't need a reason to be happy. Okay? So how do you get there? So we need to understand what reason itself means. Reasoning comes from words. Words come from language itself, which is also a construct. Okay? Language is a medium through which you express how things possibly are or could be. And to be honest, if this shirt, for example, is blue in color, if I was told from a very, very young age that this was actually green, I'm conditioned to think that way, then I will believe it is green no matter what anyone says, right? And that is the thing about language. That's the thing about perception, right? It's all about light hitting objects, and then it gives rise to your perception of this is a color, that is a color, or this is this color, that is that color. Which is why it's very important to remember that you don't need a reason to be happy. So let's just call this the overarching theme, and we'll dive into the nuances of it, which is to become a witness. So this is who you are. This is point A, and you are at point B now, fluctuating here. Someone is saying you've got to be this, you've got to be this, you've got to be this. You're dwindling between a circle of points, but you're still here, right? So this particular point where you actually are doesn't have language. So when you were born, language was taught to you as a means to understand the world. But if the person teaching you, or the world itself that is teaching you what the world is coming from a space of an ideal self, then all the more reason not to believe it. So being a witness means this. You go to any meditation center or you read any yogic scripture, they talk about being a witness in meditation, which means that you observe your thoughts but don't get into the mess of trying to sort them out. For example, if you're having some thoughts that tell you you're not good enough, you're also having thoughts that tell you you're amazing, you've got a great voice, you should do music, you should do podcasting, you're great, right? So the voice that tells you you're not good enough maybe comes from somebody in your family. And the voice that also tells you that, hey, you've got your music, you've got the ability to talk, you should do podcasts, etc. This comes from maybe a friend, right? So I'm actually giving my example here. So then both these voices are not who you are, okay? So there is someone who's observing both the negative talk and the positive talk. So you need to create a distance from who you really are from both the positive and the negative. So when you create that distance between the positive and the negative, that act of doing so is called being a witness. Who you really are, and I'm trying to answer an existential question here, who you really are is silence. Silence, a space of absolute bliss and happiness and just being, where you're not living up to any projection, you're not living up to any ideal. You are yourself. You don't need any reason. Reason again comes from logic, right? So when you become a witness, and which is the hardest thing to do because we have identified ourselves with these voices, right? So if a voice says I'm a singer, a voice says I'm an author, a voice says I'm not good enough, if I am identified with all these voices, then I will only keep switching between music and writing, and then going back to not feeling good, and then again when I'm not feeling good or I feel I'm not good enough, then do some music and try to prove myself wrong. So I'm constantly dwindling between voices, you know, the voice of a family member saying you're not good enough versus a friend saying you're good enough, and you're constantly then stuck between the tussle of these two voices. So being a witness means you're neither of these voices. You're not a doctor, you're not an engineer, you're not any identity, any gender, any label. You are absolute nothingness. So they say there are two spaces where you actually experience that nothingness. One is in deep sleep, when there is no thought, meaning there is no language, meaning there is no idea put into your head. It's just absolute nothingness, and that is who you are. And that is where they say your body heals also. So the more deep sleep you get, they say your body is rejuvenated, you wake up fresh, you feel safer. And the other aspect to it is that from the time you're born, the moment you're born, and then up until a certain age that you learn language, is where they say, that's why children, for example, are known to be absolutely blissful for no reason. Children don't really need toys and some parent making funny faces to make the child happy. The child will cry, smile, everything off of its own. There is no need for a stimulus in that sense, right? So becoming a witness to all the voices comes from meditation. Okay, the only way to achieve that silence is meditation, meditation, and meditation only. There is no other way to do it. So does that mean you have to go on a retreat? Not necessarily. Does that mean you have to become a monk? Not necessarily. All you have to do every day morning and every day night, sit by yourself in your room and allow yourself to relax and simply practice observing the thoughts without actually jumping to a conclusion. There's a lot of energy in it. Yes, it can be triggering, but you stay. When you practice stillness, there's nothing more stronger than it, because when you practice stillness, you'd realize that you're the point around which the wheel runs. You are right now running around this point, thinking that you are what is running around this point. If you take a wheel, there is that center point, the focal point around which the axis runs. That center point is who you are. You're not moving, you're not changing, but you're the one causing that change. You are the that is the witness, right? And that is who you are. So practicing meditation every morning means just this. You close your eyes, you prepare yourself to be a witness to your thoughts. You don't judge them, you don't get into the mess of trying to sort out the voices, you don't jump to conclusions, you simply observe. These thoughts are like waves in the ocean. If you've been to the beach, there are waves that go out, they expand and they go back in, they contract. And that's how your thoughts are. They are waves that will go out, in, out, in, out, in. Don't get involved in trying to sort your thoughts out. That's not your job. That's not who you are. So that's the first thing, creating a bit of distance. The second tip is being a student of yourself. And this is my favorite tip, because being a student of yourself means that you come from a space of absolute humility, knowing that everything that you know is not who you are, but is a narrative of what people have told you. It is a construct, what I call as the ideal construct. So there's the real me, the real I, and there is the construct Abhijit. So I am not the construct Abhijit. I am not what society tells me I am. I am this. I am real. And I create a distance from that identity, meaning that I am pure silence. I don't need facts, opinions, belief systems. I don't need any of that. That silence is who I am, right? Being a student of yourself means you go to that space of becoming a witness. You practice it over a period of time. And as you practice being a witness of yourself, you start observing your thoughts. Some thoughts on some days will be extremely harsh. Note the time of those thoughts. Make notes of those thoughts. Okay, so I'm feeling super low at this point of the day. After I have my lunch, when I feel super tired, is when more amount of thoughts come and barge in. Early in the morning when I wake up and I feel fresh, that's when I feel extremely motivated. Make notes of this. Track it in a journal. If you're going to a clinical psychologist, feel free to share your notes with them. Talk about this with them. And there will come a point where, as the tracking comes about, you will keep learning more about yourself. And the power of these waves that go out and in will slowly reduce. There will be days when there are going to be ups and downs, high tide and low tide of thoughts, but that's okay. Because the ocean is not the waves. The ocean is silence. And that silence is who you are. So the waves come from you. So I am, so I think, not I think, so I am. And everything that you think about yourself is illusory. Everything that you know about yourself is also the same. Meaning that it's a narrative. Everything that you're good and bad, everything that you're told you're good to be, good to be with or bad to be at, is all a construct. If you're also someone, for instance, who likes to track your mood in that sense over the course of the day, you can even do on a scale of 10 how you feel at the end of each day. Share this with a clinical psychologist or with a life coach like me, right? And we can take things from there step by step. Which takes me to the third tip, which is celebrating the success of everyone around you. Okay? And the way to do that itself means that you come from a space of absolute security. What you can't control is the world around you. What you can control is what happens within. And when you convert this, as one of my best friends put it very nicely to me, if you can convert the landfill inside into a rose garden, there is at least a chance that you might find a rose somewhere and that would smell good. But if you expect to smell like, or smell like smell beautifully while in a landfill, and that may not happen, because when inside your mind, you have the choice of going from a landfill to a garden. And in that garden, there's a high possibility you may smell of roses, you may smell of lilies, you may smell beautiful. So clearing the clutter inside begins with you going above the good and bad, the duality of light and dark. My mom said something nice to me, my dad says something ugly to me, transcending both. And when that happens, you realize that everything around you is just a projection. What you think is a projection. It's all coming from a space of collective identity and collective narrative. And it's not something that you can ever, or you should even try figuring out. Because figuring out is the problem. The mind in its very nature can never keep quiet. Gautama Buddha has talked about silencing the mind. N number of religious texts and spiritual books talk about silencing the mind, right? Arjuna in the Mahabharata war even tells Krishna that actually it feels like this is the war in the mind is the harder war to actually battle than the war happening in the Kurukshetra, out there with the enemy. So that's the very nature of the mind, isn't it? I mean, it's meant to chatter. And it works on projections. It works on images. So that is why you keep dwindling between voices. There's a need, there's an urge for the mind to work. It works on images. It works on words. So silence is a space where you keep a distance from your thoughts, meaning you keep a distance from words, you keep a distance from language, you keep a distance from images. Words and images, you keep a distance, you practice creating that distance. Over a period of time, what will happen is you will start seeing, like almost looking at the entire city from a plane right at top. It looks so beautiful as little blocks, and as you go in is where you start getting the noise of the traffic, and then that bewilders you. So creating that bit of distance is where you realize that everything around you is you, and you become part of nature, you become part of the universe. Right now, your mind is pushing you out of the universe and making you feel like you're not part of this collective energy, right? And the mind is nothing but an accumulation of the identities and the belief systems that people have put in. And these belief systems and opinions come from words and images. You associate the image of an apple to the word apple. So both the image and the word you have to create a distance from. Keep practicing that, and then you realize that those people around you that succeed in life, that success is as much yours as it is theirs. You'd realize, because you never know, the energy that you put out matters so much to the people around you, and they may not even realize that, hey, you are actually a small or rather a large reason for them getting to that point. Because if you really think about it, we all work with energy, we all work with this force field of energy. So the more we can exude that positivity from within us, even creating a safe space, for example, is brilliant for a creative artist. Sometimes I've had people come and tell me that I have done nothing at all except just be. And when I've just been myself, meaning I've embraced the silence in me, there is some kind of energy that I apparently have given out. I remember going to my yoga class once, and there were people there who actually came to my teacher and said that there is some energy about him and he seems happy. And that energy seemed to have passed on, and I noticed after I went and after I came out of the class, I noticed the people around me, the ones at the reception, everybody else exuding that energy. So I realized that in some way that energy from me has affected somebody in a positive way. So you then realize that everyone's success around you is as much yours as you think and you feel about your success being theirs. It's a collective network, right? So I've shared 3 tips with you, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on those. Believe me, when I began on this journey of practicing kindness for myself, it was not easy. Definitely not easy. And now, about 2.5 years to 3 years of actually practicing it, I can safely say I'm in a space where I am not affected by my mind and by these voices. And in fact, as I'm becoming a student of myself, as I'm becoming a witness to myself, a student of myself, and accepting the energy around me, I'm becoming a lot more inclusive of the world around me. There are days when I don't feel great. There are days when I feel supremely amazing. But in either case, I don't give in to either of those. I make sure religiously I practice keeping that distance between who I am and these projections. Practice, practice, practice. The solutions I have offered have to be practiced, because if 20-25 years of conditioning is what is making you miserable, me giving you these 3 tips will not pull you right out of it immediately and get you to completely come out of that. It takes practice. Who you are is not on the outside. Who you are is everything minus the outside. So you subtracting that in the mind, meaning you creating a distance between yourself and that little bit of space, is where you begin to put out that energy. And as you put out that kind of energy, you'd realize that life is a lot more beautiful, and you'd come to the understanding that you don't have to feel or like you need to have a reason to be happy. I was once going on a bus and I was smiling for no reason at all. I was just so happy and kind inside to myself. There were voices hitting me even then. Some voices were saying, hey, why are you smiling for no reason? Are you an idiot? There were also voices that were saying, hey, you know what? Cool, just be happy. I decided to keep a bit of distance from both these voices. I was in the bus just smiling for no reason, basking in my own happiness, and the bus conductor comes up to me and he asks me why I'm, what happened, because I was just smiling like a lunatic, and he was like, what's the problem? Why are you happy? And I said, I don't have a reason, I'm just happy. And he smiled back and he said, that's the best kind of happiness, and he walked away. It was a beautiful exchange. And when I left the bus, I looked at him as well. He was also radiating with that happiness, because maybe he was going through something, and who knows, maybe this energy helped, right? If you need support with being able to put this into practice, I come in as a life coach, and I'm more than happy to help you with this. Initially, we can start with prompts that will help you. We can go through poetry that talks about kindness. We can build a bit of a structure, bring structure to your meditation, which was the first step, right? Being a witness, and teaching you how to be a student of yourself, and teaching you how to embrace the world around you without getting entangled into opinions and views. And in the process, you realize that because there is no insecurity, there is nothing to be insecure about. And the boundaries you set are never going to be around to protect something. You being there for yourself, you having discovered and soaked in the glory of who you already are, which is not outside, which is not something that you have to go searching for. It's already there. And it's there in the silence of who you are and in being a witness. So I hope this answers more questions than you could ever think of. And reach out to me, leave your comments, do take a moment to subscribe to my channel. My name is Abhijit. I'm a certified life coach and a mental fitness enabler. Check out my other videos as well. Have a great day, week ahead. And I give more and more happiness to you, more and more energy to you. I hope you have a wonderful day. And a closing quote is this beautiful line from one of my favorite artists, from Linkin Park, one of their songs called The Messenger, in which it says, "When life leaves us blind, love keeps us kind." That love is in true silence, and that is your truth. So let's absorb into the present moment, soak into the glory of the silence that has this love that we can experience by being a witness to this duality of voices of good and bad, and then you realize that actually everything is helping you move towards your own consciousness. And you'd be grateful that all the learnings you've had thus far are all going to make sense and add up. So there's no need to fight anything. There's no need to hold on to anything. I hope you have a great day ahead of self-acceptance, self-love. Do reach out to me. Take care. I'm here. I care, and you matter.